good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started with the general plan meeting. My name is Darcy White with Clarion Associates. We are part of the consulting team that's working with the city on the general plan update and the development code update. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit tonight about where we are in the process and let you know what opportunities we have for input in terms of where we are with this overall process. So just a quick reminder, this is a dual process. We're looking at not just the general plan, but the development code as well. There have been separate meetings held over the last 6 months, and there will be more in the coming months. You may run into my colleagues, Don Elliott and Kristen Sazowski, who are working on the development code update. So we're trying to make sure that these two important documents for the city are really well integrated in terms of how the city plans for and accommodates development in the future. So we're going to focus on the general plan tonight, but if you're interested in development code issues, probably the next meeting for that will be coming up in January. So stay tuned for that, and if you're interested in receiving updates about upcoming meetings, just let us know. Put your email down on that sign-up sheet over there, and we'll make sure you get a direct notification for that. Just a quick reminder why we need the general plan. This is really the long-range plan for the community. It's a blueprint for the future, 10 to 20 years out, a policy framework. It's not the regulatory side of it. That's the development code, but this is really kind of the vision, the goals, the policies that set future direction for the city in a variety of different areas. In terms of history on the general plan, the last time that the city went through a process of this nature was in 2002, and there was a pretty strong showing of support at that time. One of the reasons we're thinking we're not getting as much participation this time around, there was a lot of, we're not fundamentally changing the document. This is an update based on a variety of things, but largely driven by the city's growth over the past 10 years, and that Lake Havasu has since reached the 50,000 population threshold, which is important from a state standpoint in that there are new requirements that need to be included into the general plan. So we talk about different topics in the general plan, and there are a number of things that we need to address this time around that weren't required last time around. We are also doing a number of technical updates. It's always good practice to look at your plan every 5 to 10 years and keep it current so that it remains relevant to the community. You can see here on the left-hand side, without even reading the titles, the left-hand side is what you had in your general plan in 2002, and on the right-hand side, you can see in the black the new expanded topics or new topics that need to be addressed. So just an example, there's now an economic development chapter, bicycle element, energy element, safety, housing. And just to be clear, it's not that the 2002 general plan didn't address these issues, but we're really just addressing them in a more comprehensive way in the updated plan. So you may have a standalone chapter on one of these topics that you didn't have in the past. So just basically expanding the breadth of the plan and making sure that it's truly comprehensive in nature. In terms of public involvement, we have been doing a number of things to try to get the community to weigh in on this process. We've had, this is our third round of meetings on the general plan this fall, and we've had varied participation, to be honest. I think we want to see more before the plan moves forward, so we're really asking for everyone's help in terms of getting the word out best way we can. I know some folks have said they've heard about the meetings through Facebook or social media. But if anyone has any suggestions about other ways to get folks involved, we do have all of the materials online and online survey available, and we have done that at each stage of the process so that folks who aren't able to attend meetings have the opportunity to participate. So I'll talk a little bit more about kind of our next steps on that before we wrap up. But the other thing I wanted to mention is we have been working with a general plan advisory committee that was appointed by council, and we've got a good representation of different interests on that group. We've met with them each time we've been here in Lake Havasu. We had a meeting with them earlier today, and I think we have a total of 15 representatives, and we've had fairly good participation with that group. So we are able to, have been able to get some good feedback from different perspectives through that group, but we're looking for more, as I said. terms of our overall process, we are at a pretty critical stage right now. We have a full draft of the document available for review. We've been working towards that in pieces. We initially spent some time revisiting the old plan back in September, asking for input from the community on the vision, the existing goals. From there, we built into the draft that we now have available. So we will be entering into kind of the review and refinement stage over the next month or so, but as the development code process progresses, the plan will be wrapping up. So we're still looking to probably have the plan go through Planning Commission hearings sometime in the February-March timeframe. That would be followed by City Council, and then ultimately for ratification by the community sometime later in 2015, and that's timeline is to be determined. So if you haven't had a chance to review the document, now is the time, and to get your input into the process and make sure that that's captured. If anyone watching is interested in getting signed up for email notification, there's an opportunity to do that on the city's website. There's a general plan page on the lower left-hand side. You can go there, get your email submitted, and you'll get a direct notification there. So encourage folks to do that. One of the things we did early in the process, just a quick reminder, was put together a document called the Community Data and Trends Report. This, if you're interested, has a whole series of information that really helped inform the plan. Population projections, housing information, all the background information that we need to help guide the plan process. So just wanted to put a plug in that's available on the city's website as well if you're interested. In terms of some of the trends and key issues that we found early in the process that also have helped inform this plan, one, Lake Havasu City has experienced significant growth and is projected to continue to grow. So you're just under 53,000 population in 2012, and the city is projected to reach 67,000 or so by 2040. So you are going to continue to see fairly steady, modest but steady growth over the next 10 to 20 years. Clearly, land availability, water, all of those considerations are factors in how quickly that growth might occur and where it might occur. So those are all things that the plan addresses as part of, that we've addressed through the plan as part of this process. Clearly, balancing tourism and quality of life considerations for permanent residents has been another theme that we've heard, as well as ensuring that infill and redevelopment is compatible with the uses that are established in the community. So I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the draft chapters that we have. But one thing I wanted to flag before we do that, the introductory section of the plan gives you a breakdown of all of those elements that I mentioned earlier on. So if you're interested in a particular topic, this is a good place to go to get some information about what the different elements mean, whether it's energy, water resources, housing, and that should give you a good orientation to the overall plan document. So for those of you who were at the meeting in October, we were last here on October 30th, we talked about the topics up here in blue. We kind of did this in two stages. It's a lot of material to review. So we talked about community vision, we talked about housing and neighborhoods, circulation, etc. And tonight we're really going to focus on the 4 remaining chapters that we didn't have available back in October: growth management, land use, economy, and then the implementation program. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of those items, and then we can circle back if there are other issues that you're interested in hearing more about in terms of how the plan addresses them. We can talk about those, circle back to those at the end. So for each of the chapters, we have a series of guiding principles and then supporting goals and policies to implement those guiding principles. So I'm just going to kind of hit these at a high level. If you haven't picked up a copy of these chapters, they are available on the table in the back there. You can kind of follow along. The growth management section really provides the framework for growth in the community. Lake Havasu City has always had a commitment of sustainable, orderly growth that really has been supported by the land use pattern, the ownership pattern surrounding the community. Two other things that have really helped shape growth in the community are the availability of water, but as well as the protection of natural resources. So public lands have played a big role in that, but so has the city's active role in open space and recreation as a quality of life issue for the community. So a variety of topics within that, but this is really kind of the foundational chapter for the land use chapter, which follows. So getting into land use, this is often the chapter that most people think of when they think of a general plan or a comprehensive plan. Most people are familiar with the colorful maps. Those are the fun things to look at and what most people can relate to. And this chapter really deals with not just the map, but the policies to support that. In terms of issues that we have been talking about related to land use, the overall balance of uses is something that's been an ongoing consideration. Balance between commercial and residential uses. Where is it appropriate to have mixed use? Those are the types of questions that we have been talking with the community about. One of the things that this chapter does that the previous plan didn't spend a lot of time doing, and this really kind of builds on the work of the RUDAT and the other plans that have been completed since 2002, is to really define and reinforce the different character areas in the community. So downtown or uptown, the island and shoreline, the Bridgewater Channel area near the bridge, all of those areas are now defined by their own goal and policies to reinforce that work and make sure that this really kind of gives you that foundational support for those things moving forward. Compatible development practices are another theme that really resonate in this section, as do the need for collaboration in terms of implementing the land use plan. I talked about the public lands. We talked earlier with our committee about the importance going forward of the city and other organizations working with the State Land Division and others to try to think about the long-term future of those properties. So that's something that the plan does play a role in, and I think the feedback we got earlier is that that might even need to be strengthened going forward in terms of how critical those connections are. So other character areas that the plan talks about, ASU campus, we heard earlier, we also need to talk about the Mojave County Community College campus, the gateways. Those are all things that the plan provides some policy emphasis on, commercial health district near the hospital, etc. In terms of the map itself, I wanted to just remind you, if anyone's been involved in an earlier version of this general plan, you may recognize these key concepts. This is really kind of fundamental to what came out of the 2002 plan process. There was at that point, it was really more of a visioning effort. It was kind of bringing a lot of these ideas together. And so the ideas of a centralized focus, again, around downtown or uptown, protection of unique character areas, connectivity between different parts of the community. And what we mean by connectivity is really just, how do people get from one place to another, whether it's walking, biking, driving, and making sure that these places are all kind of knit together, if you will. Mix of housing types has also been a theme for many, many years in the community. And that's really important, not just from the standpoint of permanent residents, but also from the visitors as well. One of the other avenues, the issues related to the mix of housing types is that, like many other communities across the country, Lake Havasu's population is getting older. And while most folks have enjoyed a single-family house on a their own lot, a lot of people are, as they age, will need different services and different types of housing to facilitate, the idea being that you can age in place easier if you have a house with that's accessible for your needs for a longer period of time. Other people, may just want a smaller house with less yard to take care of. So there are different ways that can come into play, but things to think about as the community continues to grow. So this is the future land use plan map, and what I wanted to point out here is that there are really pretty targeted changes that were made to the map from the 2002 plan. If you're familiar with that document, and you squinted at this, it might not be readily apparent, but I'll call out a couple of areas where we've made a couple changes. These two nodes up here are really basically, those were part of the early plan, were intended to be kind of neighborhood supporting commercial. Those were previously shown as nodal commercial, which in the, as defined in the plan, is really a more high intensity use. And I think a lot of the feedback we've heard about neighborhood compatibility, those types of issues, and the underlying zoning really reflect that as more of a neighborhood commercial use. So we're proposing making that change to call it what it is, essentially neighborhood commercial. Couple other areas to call out. So on the island, we have the residential development that's kind of emerging now. Parts of it are further built out than others, but in the previous plan that wasn't reflected at that time. Construction hadn't started. It was a little preliminary to try to designate what that is. So that's shown as resort residential now versus the general resort category. We've also made some tweaks near the airport. So if you look on the little inset map, the employment uses surrounding the airport are now more clearly reflected. Early on, before the Agave Business Park was built, that area was shown as parkland, for example. So just trying to make some adjustments to reflect the direction that the community has gone in different areas. Couple other refinements related to commercial categories, but I think the general theme being if something was on the map and it really didn't, wasn't reflective of what the definition of that category was, we've proposed making some minor adjustments to accommodate that. So take a look at those. Happy to answer questions about the map when we're done and you have a chance to kind of squint at that a little bit. We also have the island and shoreline map, which kind of gives you a more zoomed in version of that area, so you can take a look at that as well. And not a lot of changes in that area, but you can see the purple area is really reflects a lot of the resort-related uses, and that goes back to some of the earlier planning work that was done, kind of thinking about that long term again, what the potential would be for the shoreline and island, as well as some of the industrial areas here that we've heard from folks say that maybe those are underutilized long term. We should think about what the potential is. So the map really tries to reflect that range of possibilities for the community going forward. So while this may reflect what's on the ground in some cases, in other cases it's sort of looking beyond that to the future. You can see the kind of the medium yellow color is really the predominant color on the map, and that really reflects the majority of the neighborhoods in the city. And that's kind of the low density residential, 2 to 4 dwelling units per acre. In some cases it's a little bit higher. We had a question earlier that range might not be exactly accurate, so we'll take a look at that. But that's really intended to be the predominant use going forward with the other areas that we talked about. So shifting gears into the next section, the economy section. I mentioned this is a new element, and I think the underlying theme through a lot of our discussions, we talked a lot about this at our committee meeting earlier today, is really kind of what does balanced economy mean to Lake Havasu? There's been, I think there's a lot of different perspectives about the role of tourism versus permanent residents and how do you balance those things. And I think what we've heard is they're both really important, and we need to figure out how to make them work together and to try to improve opportunities in both areas. So the idea of diversification was a big point of discussion. Regional collaboration is another opportunity and point of discussion here as well. There's a lot of different organizations working in the community on different economic development issues, and we want to be sure to recognize in the plan how those groups work together, what opportunities exist for them to partner together to further shared vision for the community. So this chapter also talks quite a bit about tourism initiatives. We got some great feedback from the committee earlier about opportunities to expand that. Suggestion to add a specific recommendation to prepare an economic development plan, something that's already being considered. So a lot of different ideas that have come out of that, but I think the other theme here is really thinking about how land use helps support economic development and vice versa. So land use decisions that are made, for example, on the island or on the along the channel, really help revitalize the community. That can be beneficial to both tourism as well as permanent residents. The last section I'll mention is the implementation program, and this is one of the most important sections for obvious reasons. This is really where the rubber meets the road in terms of let's try to capture what the specific actions are the community thinks should be taken to implement the plan. It's fine to have all the policies in the world, but if you don't know how to move the plan forward, it's probably not going to move very quickly. And so what we've done in this section is really highlight for each of those guiding principles what some specific recommended actions might be to move the plan forward. Some of those are immediate, things that are need to happen quickly. Others are things that might be ongoing efforts that staff is working on or others in the community are working on an ongoing basis. But it's important to recognize those things. This can be a helpful tool for developing work programs for staff, for example, or not that Stu needs to do all of these things, but I think trying to quantify what it is that needs to happen to move the plan forward. And so one of the things that you can kind of see if you've got the copy, the action plan matrix kind of breaks down for each of those guiding principles what some of those recommended actions are. You can see there's a lead versus partnership role, and these are all still being refined. So you may find things in there that need to be shifted, and we appreciate the feedback on that. But really trying to define how these ideas will move forward. One thing to point out in this section is that a number of these are flagged as one, and the question was raised earlier, what's the thinking behind that? And you'll see that as you look through there, a number of the recommendations really do relate back to the development code update. And as I mentioned earlier, since that's something that's happening as we speak, we have the opportunity to align these two efforts. A lot of those recommendations will be addressed as part of that. So it's a quick win for the city in terms of trying to accomplish a number of things at the same time. So anything related to regulations and kind of the underlying zoning that supports the land use map really are things that will be addressed as part of the code update. So pretty quickly, those things will be taken care of. The recommendation is that this chapter in the plan is one that's revisited at least on an annual basis by the city. So if you've got a list of recommendations, you're checking things off. This should be the most living part of this document. So something that's revisited periodically, whether it's a year or 2 years, it doesn't really matter. But I think the goal is that you see progress, the community sees progress in terms of how the plan is being implemented. So something that we would appreciate some scrutiny on in terms of, do we have the right list of actions? Are there others that need to be added or things that don't make sense? So for those watching or interested, I think if you have a chance to take a look at this section in particular, it would be very beneficial to the process. So with that, I'm going to shift gears here a little bit. So we're back to where we started, and I just want to take a moment and see if any of you who weren't here for the October meeting, so just a quick reminder, since I know a couple folks came in late, the orange topics are what we covered tonight, but we did cover the other topics in blue at our earlier meeting in October, and I'm happy to circle back if there's interest in a particular section. I'm happy to do that. Are there any topics up here that anyone would like me to talk about a little bit more in terms of what the plan has in it? The question was, is the plan available online? And it is available online. There's on the city's webpage, the general plan page on your lower left. If you go to that link, and there's a draft of the plan available, all the background material, as well as a SurveyMonkey tool you can use to provide your comments that way. But we're happy to take comments in any form that we can get them. We've gotten a number of emails directly to Stu, and he's been forwarding those on to us as well. So happy to get the feedback any way we can. So. Are there any other topics or questions, comments on what we've looked at? Yes, sir. Oh.
I'm a fairly new resident in Havasu, and I retired about 12 years ago from being a planner in Oregon. And one of the things we would do if we had any code amendments or plan amendments, we the Oregon land use process is very much in tune with public, and I was just curious: are there what you would call neighborhood associations in Havasu? Because that's where how we distribute it through the neighborhoods or larger areas.
I'm gonna turn it to Stu, but I think the feedback we've heard thus far is sort of Lake Havasu is almost viewed as one big neighborhood. I've heard a number of people say that, so I want to hear what Stu's take is on that.
I don't think there's any neighborhood associations per se, but I know our code enforcement routinely goes out to neighborhoods. And I don't know if there's a line drawn in the sand or anything with regard to neighborhoods, but there are specific areas that they hit. We could probably look at whatever those are if we have those mailing lists available and go with that, I guess.
Well, we found that these were, sorry. I worked for a county in Oregon, and the county commissioners, they were responsible for recognizing where these areas were going to be and what their boundaries would be. And I found that having these neighborhood groups was a very, very good way to get the word out to anybody who would be interested. So.
Thanks for that feedback. I think particularly now that we've got an entire draft put together, I think the goal over the next month or so is really to sort of circle back to as many folks as we can and try to do some of that more targeted outreach. So appreciate the suggestion, Gary.
I think one of the challenges...
Oh, sorry, I just...
Yeah, I need the evidence. I think one of the challenges over the years, because I've been here since '73, was when they talk about a big neighborhood, we were very loose. I mean, the houses were scattered all over the place. So you didn't have that cohesive neighborhood. You had a couple of tracks that McCulloch had developed early on where you had that. And I live off Paseo Dorado, just off of Saratoga, and there's an informal neighborhood association. They meet and have some potluck things and stuff like that. And then when we did the updates for Neighborhood Watch and stuff, but I think that was probably part of the problem, I think, was the way we developed. I mean, in the early days, somebody would build clear up on Bison, and you'd go, where is Bison, kind of a thing. So, but your point's well taken. I think when you can have that cohesive thing, it works pretty good.
Well, here you go. Maybe we should sit together. The jurisdiction I worked for was part of the excuse me, as I've gotten older, I can't talk, but Portland and metropolitan area, and it was it had an urban base and then a much larger rural base, and the sizes of the neighborhood associations fluctuated whether you lived in a rural area or in a urban area. So quite often you would, I can't remember how many we had, but there were a very large number of community associations that were very, very active, though. It's something that it's just kind of a suggestion more than anything else for how to contact more people and get them involved.
Absolutely, and I think the other suggestion you guys were talking about earlier is, maybe we talked early on about the water bill mailings, and we'll see what else we can do now that we've got this complete draft. And point well taken. So thank you. Other comments or questions? Okay. Well, one more.
I don't know if you caught it, but it confused me for a moment when I was going through the October plan things. And let me find out. Okay. Up in the upper left-hand corners, or I guess at the back of the pages, there's something that says chapter such and such and what it is, and about halfway through the about halfway through the circulation plant element, the top of it, where it says where you are, changes to open space. And just if nobody caught it.
Thank you. Yeah, we did catch that. There was a
Okay.
header footer glitch there, but yeah. And I think now that we've got all of the sections together, that helps clarify things too. So, okay. Mr. Mayor? Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry. On the land use, and I don't have a map in front of me, but does it address the proposed Havasu 280 project?
that is yes, a lot of the public lands where there are proposed uses on those, the plan talks about that from a policy perspective. So those issues are addressed in the plan, and we can take a look and make sure we've covered the gamut that you're looking for, but we do have some references to that.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions? Happy to hang around. We do have, if you didn't get a copy, like I said, we do have copies of the materials in the back if you're interested, as well as online. And then just a quick reminder, we will be having the next development code meeting to be scheduled in January. And then following that, we'll be having the kind of the final series of general plan meetings. And I want to make sure I said the right thing. Development code meeting in January, followed by the general plan meetings in the February-March timeframe. So we will confirm those dates, and they will be posted online. And as I said earlier, if you signed up for updates, you'll get direct notification of those if you're interested in coming back. And at that point, we'll be getting into meetings with the committee and the planning commission is what we're thinking. And so having folks there to participate in those discussions would be very helpful. So we would welcome that, and certainly welcome any feedback, any and all feedback we can get before then, because we'll be working to refine the draft. The materials will be available to comment through the end of the year, potentially into the first week of January. And we'll be working on refinements to the draft in January based on what we hear, and then bringing it back to folks beyond that. So this is kind of a good window for everyone to take a look if you haven't already, and let us know what your thoughts are. So appreciate your participation, and again, if you can help us get the word out and get folks to the meetings, we would appreciate it. So thanks for your time.